Hi, everybody. I'm Alan Locher, and I want to thank you for joining me on this Tuesday evening, July 25th, for what is the 400th episode of The Locher Room. I am grateful to each and every person who has taken the time to watch one of my shows and to all of my guests who have sat down to chat with me. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. And tonight's guest, director and producer Dan Watt, is here today to tell us about his beautiful documentary, Everybody Dance, which follows 5 kids with different disabilities, their families, and dance teacher for 10 months on their journey through life and toward their final dance recital. The film highlights the importance of inclusion and how essential it is in our everyday lives. Dan will discuss what drove him to make this film, how he chose and found the 5 kids, and why he believes showing your support to the disabilities community while also raising awareness is very crucial. Joining Dan and I a little later in the show is Jamie Kay, whose eldest son Liam is featured in the documentary. Everybody Dance is currently available to screen on Freevee on Amazon Prime for free in celebration of Disability Pride Month. Please help me welcome Dan Watt to the Locher Room. Hey, Dan.
Well, hello, Alan, and congratulations. I'm honored that I'm episode 400.
Well, thank you so much. And truly, thank you for reaching out to me and to share your beautiful film.
Oh, well, thank you for finding the time to watch it. I really, really do appreciate it.
Well, I hope everybody who tunes into the Locher Room tonight will check it out themselves. But tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been producing and directing?
Well, let me see. I started out as a dancer myself. I started taking dance when I was 15. So I've been involved in the arts. And then when I moved out to Los Angeles, and as I was getting up there in age, I liked the other side of the table. I was a dance captain for a dance company, so I got to go in a day ahead of time and set the lights and the music cues. And I realized I liked being in charge. So I then crossed over to producing, and then from that point, I was being asked to choreograph musicals and things like that. So it was like a natural progression of my career. So it started on the stage, and I produced and directed and choreographed about 53 musicals. But I always wanted to do film and television. And I thought that was about a 10-year span. And I thought, either do it or don't. You can either start at production number 1 and just repeat yourself and just go through the book again, or take the jump. So I took the jump, and I got hired by Columbia Pictures. I was lucky. It was my second interview. FYI, the Dr. Phil show turned me down, their loss. But Columbia Pictures hired me in their development department, and I worked there for 5 years. And that was just the best learning experience you could get, reading scripts every day and working on movies and the actual set on the lobby or on location, and then looking at the dailies every day and having to pick which ones to send to your boss. And then after that, I moved to work for Simon Cowell for 5 years. And my first project there was the One Direction documentary about the band. So
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back. Dancing since you were 15. Where did your love of dance begin?
Well, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I didn't know this. I auditioned for my freshman year, the recital. It was the only show, the variety show that freshmen could be in. And the choreographer, Claire, said, "You have this natural rhythm, this natural beat. Are you interested in dance?" I said, "Well, I'm interested in theater." So she took me to my first dance class. So I started a little bit late. And then now that I've been asked this question a few times, I thought back and I thought, I've been exposed to dance ever since 4th grade, because my mom and dad took ballroom lessons, and they would take me with them instead of getting a babysitter. And if someone's partner didn't show up, I would be the partner. So I remember dancing with a woman by the name of Marilyn with big flaming red hair, and and here I am, in fourth grade pretending to be her husband because her husband was sick. So I was exposed to dance and music because it was always in our house, but I didn't know that I liked it as much as I did, and still until Claire introduced me to my dance teacher in Cleveland and mentor Dee Hillier.
I love that. And you definitely reached out to the right person, because dance is truly one of my favorite things to do. I was not a professional, just, it is that form of expression that I love. And
Uh-huh.
I think it was my sister who, as her dance partner, because she was 5 years older, that basically, got me on the dance floor. But you definitely pitched this film to the right person. Talk about your drive to want to tell stories that need to be told and that touch people's hearts.
Well, I was very lucky to work at like I said, at Columbia Pictures and for Simon Cowell, but I've always been interested in true stories. And when I was younger, I used to come home from school and watch Phil Donahue and and the Merv Griffin show. And my mom was like, "Why aren't you out playing?" And I'm like, "Shh, Phil's on." I loved he was everything to me. And who would have thought in fifth, sixth, seventh grade, that's what I wanted to hear. But there were discussions and topics about, everything. And I loved that. So
Hmm.
after 10 years, again, I guess it's like every 10 years I go through this metamorphosis. I thought, do I need to do another Jennifer Aniston? Sorry. I mean, I love her to death. Another movie where she falls in love, they break up, and then they get back together. Do I need to do a third one? The only difference is now it's in Montana. Or, or do I tell real stories? And I, while I was working on the One Direction movie, Morgan Spurlock was the director. And I talked to him a lot, and he said, either do it or you don't. But if you want to tell real stories, then just do it. Just do it. And I did. And again, I took the jump and just started doing it myself.
And where did the idea for Everybody Dance come from? What were you introduced to the school?
Well, I knew I wanted to tell, and also this was guidance from Morgan. He said, "You're a newcomer now." He said, "They're not going to care that you worked for Columbia Pictures. They're not going to care that you worked for Simon Cowell. You're just Dan Watt, and they won't answer the phone. They're not going to return your phone calls. They're not." So he said, when you get in that meeting, they're going to ask you so many questions, and you need to have the answer to everything. So he said, your first movie needs to be something that you can answer any question to, because they're going to bombard you, because they want to support you, but a lot of times they want to find the reason to tell you no.
Hmm.
And so he prepared me that way. And I was always fascinated with people who studied the arts. And I fast in regards to, if your mom made you take piano lessons or violin lessons or singing or dancing, but you didn't make a profession out of it, did you learn anything that you applied in your everyday life? So that was my initial concept was, what did you learn from the arts that you now use in life or have used somewhere in your life? You know, so that was
Yeah.
my initial idea.
Yeah.
And then I had a dream, and I dreamed about Fran and her two daughters. Now, I had not taught dance in, we're talking like 17 years. And Fran's two daughters had autism. And when I taught them, and when Fran and brought the kids to the class, she said, they have autism. We know that they're going to progress at a slower pace. And I said, okay. And I had never taught anyone, never did any research, never any, back then there weren't special classes for things like that. So I just taught my class the normal way. I just taught it as usual and let them just be a part of the class. But I thought, why am I having this dream? That's weird, you know? And then I had the dream 2 weeks later again, another dream about Fran and her two daughters. And I thought, that's God poking me. That's God saying, here's your movie. I'm giving you your movie. I also love Oprah, and Oprah says, sometimes, you get poked, and then if they throw a brick at you, how many times. And I thought, you know what? There's a reason, because I haven't taught in 17 years. Why am I thinking of these particular kids? And then I just pursued it from there.
And how did you pursue it from there? How did you, uh, the internet? Did you,
Yeah, yeah, I did research. I did a lot of research, and I just researched conservatories because I wasn't sure if it's going to be dance or conservatory. Where was I going to go with this? And I looked at places all across the country, and I did phone calls with different studios and conservatories and colleges. I even tried, It- but nobody had a class that I thought was right. They would teach dance for 10 minutes, and then it would turn into like a babysitting service. Then it was just like a free-for-all romper room. And there are definite needs for classes like that, where they can play with balls and hula hoops and stuff like that. But I wanted to see if there was a place that taught a 1 hour dance class like I took, and I found Bonnie. And the thing that was ironic is I was avoiding California, searching the entire country, trying to find one, and her studio is in the valley.
right. Why
So
were you trying to avoid California?
I just thought it would be too Hollywood, in my mind. But this is just something I built up in my mind. I thought this is going to be competition. It's going to be a different type of studio, and it's not going to. I just didn't think it would be here. But that was just a something I put in my own brain. So when I decided to just start, Googling more and more local places, I stumbled across her studio, Ballet for All Kids. And I reached out to her, and we had maybe two conversations on the phone. And she, a little hesitant because,
She didn't know you.
well, yeah, and you're open, yeah, you're opening up your life and your business.
Yeah.
And then we have to talk to the parents and the kids, which we'll be doing soon, the about it. Then they have to, and it came, it's a big trust thing, and I'm portraying her legacy, her school. And then we had maybe two meetings in person, and then I met with some of the board members, and then I went and watched some of the classes,
And
and
and,
we
and one
hit
of
it
the
off.
board members who's featured in the film also has a
Yeah,
child with a disability,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Adrian, what an amazing woman. Yeah, she's also absolutely amazing.
absolutely. How much did you know about the disability community before taking, tackling this endeavor?
Really not much. I reflected back to when I taught with Fran's kids, and I realized that I didn't make any adjustments to my class. And that's what Bonnie did. Bonnie teach the kids that take a 1 hour, or I think it's 55 minutes ballet class, just like you and I would take, and it wasn't just 10 minutes because the kids got bored. And Bonnie is so good at keeping them interested and coming up with ways to do that. And I thought, and I reflected back to when I would have talks with Fran, and I and about 2 years into it, her daughters were still in jazz one, and I moved one of them to the front row, and she started to cry. And I thought, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I do wrong? So I grabbed Fran, and she said, no, those are tears of joy. You moved it, because the front row is where I would put two or three of the students who knew my warm up that all the new kids could follow. And I just moved her daughter up because she was ready. it didn't enter my mind that I had to worry about anything. And she said, no, those are tears of joy, because that was her goal. Well, then I start crying. Then Fran starts crying. But I realized that I didn't make any adjustments, and neither does Bonnie. Bonnie sets a standard and a bar, and the kids have to come up to it. And it's the teacher's responsibility to try to figure out how to do that. And that's where Bonnie is an absolute angel. But, any teacher, when you're teaching dance, I'm trying to teach you a step. I'll go left, right, left, back, side together, 1, 2, 3, bum. But it's 4 different ways to teach the same step, which is a pas de bourrée. Okay. And you just hope that Alan, one of those makes sense to little old Alan in class over there.
Right.
And that's what Bonnie does.
But the challenge she does have, in the sense that she is teaching a class with a variety of disabilities. So uh, just, and I don't want to give much away, because I found it fascinating how she has found a way to help each kid individually be able to understand the steps she is trying to teach them.
Right.
And
Well,
that's a beautiful moment in the film.
Right. And I think that the one thing we should say that is key to her school are the volunteers.
I will absolutely, yes. I was fascinated by their devotion as well. I am so
Right.
glad you actually shined a spotlight on them in the film, because us viewers would not have known that.
Right. And to see that, again, we don't want to give away too much, but the gentleman that's in there that talks about, this was
Logan, was that his name?
Yeah, Logan.
Logan.
He had to do it for credit for 2 months and ended up staying.
Right. He didn't think he would
3
stay,
years.
right?
Yeah, he stayed. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So it's I'm still friends with these kids and their parents. We're having one on the show in a minute.
Yeah.
I still talk to them, because the studio, what Bonnie has set up, and the volunteers are part of it, is this loving environment where anyone can walk in and take a ballet class. You don't have to have a disability. You can be typical. You don't need to be neurodivergent, or anyone can take that class. And if you walked by and looked in there, you would not know who was who in that class. And that's how Bonnie wanted it. And that's just
and that's the name of the studio.
Exactly. Ballet for all kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You must have learned, and I know you had exposure, as you talked about Fran and her kids, but you must have learned a lot about the disability community by following these families, and watching these amazing kids, uh, you know in their environment, thriving in that environment.
It was definitely a huge learning experience for me, and also life altering, which is why I really want to get the word out about the movie, because it did change my life, and my perspective and my outlook. And if it affected me that way, if other people who watch it can walk away with some bit of knowledge, a little bit more insight, a little bit more patience, a little bit more empathy, that's the word I was looking for, then I did my job. I would come home, and before I went, I would research online and read up about everything. If I saw um, one of the children doing something, I would ask Bonnie after class, and she would say, "Well, that is called stimming. That's when they're overexcited and they don't know they they have to release it. So they might just be tapping their foot. They might be, you know, clapping their hands. They just need to release the energy because they're overstimulated and they don't, and that's their how to do it." So I learned something like that. And then there's another thing called preservation, which is Ailey in there, the little girl with the afro puff who I adore. Um, that's when they repeat, everything has to be done the exact same way every time. You know, you have to walk on the left side of the road when her mom would talk about going to just to the dance studio or anywhere, the grocery store. They have to park in, maybe it's got to be aisle 3, or lane 3,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
they have to park under a light post. And to see that, her name is Jamie too, Ailey's mom, that the patience, because we spent a day with them, my cameraman and I, the patience that she has, because you have to find a parking spot under a light post.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that could take some time.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her, and she said, "Well, the reality is, do I drive around here for 20 minutes until one opens up, or do I go home and we then deal with the tantrum for 3 hours?" So it's always a compromise. It's always a conversation, and the way her and her daughter talk and work it out. And she would say, "Ailey, there isn't one with a light post, but how about whatever?" And how to just have the patience
Mm-hmm.
and the confidence to figure things out like that. They're
I,
angels.
they are. Yes, and I can't. I have my first cousin has a severely autistic son, born on my birthday, and what they go through is incredibly tough, and um, I know you had Bonnie's help, but how was it picking which kids to include in the film, and yeah, basically, how did you choose who you were going to feature?
Well, what I did is, Ben and I. Well, interesting. The first day we went up there to film, I was a little over prepared. I you know
How
I
so? How
I
so?
brought my Hollywood crew. I mean, I worked for Simon Cowell and Columbia Pictures. I need lights, and I knew I didn't bring lights. I'm lying about that, but I brought three cameras and a sound guy. Well, you saw that studio. It's the biggest. It's like the size of one of them is the size of a living room. And as soon as we went into the studio, the kids were no longer in a dance class. And I promised Bonnie I would not do that. I never wanted to interrupt their class, because they're there to study dance. They're learning ballet, or
And
they're
I'm sure you being there could be disruptive because
right. So
they are used to things in a way.
right, 100%. But not just, but any kid, if you walk in and you have
Yeah.
that microphone that looks like a caterpillar, and everybody wants to touch it, the boom mic, or there's a tripod and they want to crawl through it. It any kid at the age of 7 would be fascinated. So that was something that was thrown at me the first day that I didn't even think about, and I just pulled everybody out of the studio, because I promised Bonnie I want to be a fly. I wanted to film this like I was a fly on the wall. And I realized that I was you know, prepared with that. So we made a decision in the parking lot. I just grabbed Ben, my DP and camera guy, and I said, we can't do it this way. I said, I just need you to hold the camera. Just put it on your shoulder and we'll just film it. And that's the way it is every day, because kids are going to be running around you, to get the footage. The kids have to be able to dance. Bonnie has to be able to correct the kids, and we need to be able to get out of the way. So we completely changed everything. He put it onto a handheld on his shoulder, and we filmed the rest of it that way till we got to the theater. Um, but so what I did is then, going back to your question, was that there were about 11 kids that popped out to me, and where I thought there could be a story. And then I was introduced to the parents, because that was the next thing, is that what parent is going to allow me to interview them. So that would help me decide on what kids. So I fell in love with Liam right away. And it might, you know, in the movie, you can see him in the movie. He's absolutely adorable.
Mm-hmm.
And was I, because I was the one of the three dancers in Cleveland, male dancers in Cleveland. I'm rooting for, there's another guy dancer, root for the guy, but are his parents going to talk to me? Are Ailey's parents going to sit down and let me talk to them? So it was then reaching out to them and in getting their trust to allow to interview at the studio, and then maybe take it a little further, and we were lucky enough that some of them did, let me spend the day with them. So, but then I was too close, and I gave it to my editor, who I trusted completely. His name is Isaiah Camp. And I said, you need to narrow this down, because I see them every weekend. They are now in my heart and in my life. I can't pick them. You now, because he never met the kids, he just got the footage. I said, you now have to tell me what story arcs what stories have an arc that tell, a complete story that would work in a movie. And then actually with Breezy, when we were talking about Adrienne, the woman on the board of directors,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't give Breezy any attention prior to the recital. And then I saw her on stage, and she lit up the room and had the time of her life. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's ballet for all kids. So it's all the interviews with Breezy and her mom actually happened after the recital, and then we had to scour the footage to tell a story. And thank God my camera guy caught some B-roll for it, because in class, as a personal choice on mine, I just didn't gravitate towards her. And you have, 150 kids to choose from. It's just, where are you going to go with it? But when I saw her on stage, I said, we need to feature her. I mean, she's a star,
Yeah, there's so many great moments, and the way you talk about Bonnie, I loved how she helps each student differently due to their disability, and how I think what I was trying to say earlier is everybody has an access point, as she said,
Yeah.
teaching auditorially, visually, kinesthetically, and using props. So it's fascinating. And going back to Adrienne Ross, I loved what she had to say about her daughter.
Yeah.
She doesn't just enjoy dancing. She loves the way it makes her feel. And I think that's probably, you talking about loving dance at 15, no matter who we are, disability or not, dance does that for all of us, I think.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, I agree 100%. Even, people that say they can't dance, well, they dance in a different way. They're dancing in their skivvies at home. They turn on the radio.
Totally.
They
Yeah.
just don't do that at the wedding.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. My uncle would have, but that's
Yeah.
a different segment.
The thought, and I'll say this before we bring out Jamie, you captured it beautifully for everybody, not just Adrienne's daughter, but everybody, that you can see the joy that it brings each of those students, and really Bonnie as well, and those interns as well.
Well, and I wanted to be very, very careful with this. My vision, what I wanted it to be, educational. Like we said, I'm hoping people watch it. They'll enjoy the journey, and it ends with a dance recital, so they get that added bonus. But I wanted it to be the kid's story and the parent's story in their words. I just needed to, and I'm so humbled and honored that I was able to present their stories. I didn't want to say anything. I mean, it's not, it's their story. And I wanted them to share what their experiences were to educate us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just wanted to show some of the images from the film before we bring Jamie out. But Jamie Kay, along with her husband Aaron, are raising 2 sons on the autism spectrum. Jamie is joining us now to discuss her son Liam's journey with dance and tell us how dance has become one of the places he feels most like himself. Please help me welcome Jamie Kay to the show. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
I think, I'm so glad you participated in this film. I think Liam, as well as you and Aaron, I thank all of you and the other families. I think it will help so many others by just seeing this story.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah. And they were one of the first, the hi Jamie, love you.
Hi Dan, love you too.
They were one of the first families to let me even spend the day with them and go to their house a few times, where they opened up and willing to share their story. And again, not wanting to give too much away, but the conversation with her and her husband on the couch tells a lot. It tells
absolutely. It does. Jamie, take me back to when Liam was 2 and what you were seeing that concerned you and your husband.
So Liam had been born 2 months early, and they kept telling us at the hospital that he'd be caught up by the time he was 3. Well, somewhere that development catch-up moved to 2 after he was released from the hospital. So we just kind of kept watching him, and it was the babysitter and I both noticing that he would stare off into space, and you could run your hand across his face and he wouldn't move, and you'd have to get right in his face, say his name, and he'd just perk up and be smiley. We saw foods that he would eat, he'd stop eating them all of a sudden. We saw the lack of eye contact when having conversation. We saw a lot of repetitive speech. So we called the pediatrician. He directed us to the CDC, which of course I can't remember what it stands for. It's not the Center for Disease Control. And then they put us with Tri-Counties Regional Center. So we started this whole process of having him assessed to see what kind of delays were there. Initially, the regional center had diagnosed him as PDD-NOS, which is pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. Autism is a pervasive developmental disorder, but we don't know what this NOS is. But it was also at the same time that there was a lot of reports of 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds being diagnosed with autism, and the world was in this uproar over how young, how do they know they're really autistic, what's going on here? And so it was stated that we should definitely have him reevaluated before he goes into kindergarten. So the year before he went into kindergarten, we took him back in, had him reevaluated, and they determined that he was on the autism spectrum. And that was based on things that were a little worse from the year before, his background of his birth, head size. He had like an adult head size at 4, and there was a subgroup of preemies born who had autism, who had this larger head size, and so that's where we got this diagnosis, and the whole thing started, getting him special supports in schools, preschool, and then it's carried on through him. He's starting his senior year next month, and he still has his IEP and gets a lot of supports at school.
Wow, senior, my God.
Yeah, he's a senior now, and he still dances quite a bit.
I love that. For people who are watching and who might be concerned about their child, like you and your husband were, is there something you would recommend?
Go to your regional center and have them assessed and talk to your child's pediatrician. A lot of people don't want to have a label. They don't want to label their kids. They don't want that assessment. And I understand that because everyone seems to have a label these days. And it feels sometimes that it's not always helpful, but it is when it comes to the school system. It really is. You get these supports that you wouldn't know. Liam just attended the Youth Leadership Forum for Students with Disabilities in California, and he said what he learned was he didn't realize how much resources there are out there for people with disabilities to achieve what they want to achieve. And so that was a big thing. And if he didn't have the label, he wouldn't have had access to all these amazing supports for him, and we'd be fighting and paying through the nose for everything. Even some things we are paying through the nose for, but there's be so much more that we've been able to access for him to go where he wants to go and achieve what he wants to achieve.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think it is important. People, don't always know how to, take that next step to find out. And I think knowledge is key. Having the right information will help you do the best you can for your child, whoever you are, and whatever your child's going through. It doesn't have to be autism, anything.
Exactly. And it helps that one of my best friends had just been going through this with her son. He's a couple of years older than Liam. So she's always kind of been my support.
Your go-to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me how Liam was first introduced to dance or ballet.
So the music class in kindergarten during December, they watched clips of Baryshnikov's Nutcracker. And Liam came home and says, "Mom, I want to take ballet." I said, what makes you want to do that? He goes, "Well, we watched the Nutcracker, Mom, and it was amazing. I want to do that." Okay. But I'm born and raised in Thousand Oaks, and I know that the studios where we live are not the place for him. They're ultra competitive. You've got that stereotypical taskmaster ballet instructor who was going to crush him. And it would be very difficult for him, and he'd hate it. And I'd want him to have the opportunity to like it. So we had attended an autism walk at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, and they had a resource fair. And I'm looking for all kinds of stuff while I'm there, and everything is in LA, in Pasadena. And I'm thinking, I'm not dragging my kids out here on the weekends or during the week, especially with 20 hours of ABA therapy all week long. This isn't going to happen. And I work full time. This isn't going to happen. And I came across Ballet for All Kids, and I was like, oh, they're in Encino. Great. Drag them out to the valley. And then they said Westlake. And I said, Westlake Village, like Ventura County, Westlake Village? Yes, sign me up. So we signed up for interest in the class, and that was in, I think, April. And in July, Liam started classes with Bonnie. He started ballet one day a week, and then slowly pushed him out of his comfort zone to try tap. Then he was going twice a week. And then as years went on, he goes, I don't like tap anymore. I just want to do ballet. And then when he hit pre-teenage, we found a male dance instructor who is Czechoslovakian born, Russian trained ballet dancer. And we found him at another studio where Liam began taking private lessons with him. Bonnie has now snagged him up with Ballet for All Kids. So Bonnie now has him as one of the instructors.
We're going to come back to Bonnie in a minute. I want to show this picture that Dan had sent me of Liam holding up
Oh,
his autograph picture of Baryshnikov. Dan, tell us how you got that.
Well, like I said, I fell in love with Liam and also, his mom and dad. And I thought when he said he he tells the story in the movie a little bit about how he wants to be like Baryshnikov. I thought I need to track down Baryshnikov, and yeah, don't give me a task because I will do it. Even though I gave it myself the task, and I reached out to everybody I knew from when I danced, and I said, somebody, you need to put me in contact with them. And I reached out to people at ABT, and I had my editor pull the clip of Liam telling the story, and then Liam in ballet, dancing, and it took about 4 months, and all of a sudden I got an envelope, this package. He sent just the words of encouragement, the picture, and then ballet clothes from his dance company for Liam.
Oh,
So it
wow.
turned into a much bigger thing than I anticipated, but I was determined that Liam deserved that and Liam should have that. And I went on a mission.
That's incredible. I used to live, when I lived in New York City, across from the Baryshnikov Art Center on
Oh,
37th Street. Um, Talk about Bonnie, and watching her do what she did for Liam and the other kids in the class.
Bonnie is a ballet instructor. She is a ballet teacher. She's expects the kids to put in their effort, to put in their all. She expects them to focus, to be on task, to do what they're supposed to do at the time they're supposed to do it. Like any any dance instructor, choir instructor, teacher, this is your job and this is what we're doing right here, right now. It doesn't matter what their ability is. She does not expect them to look like professional dancers, but she expects them to try and do the dance and the moves at their abilities and improve upon their abilities. But at the same time, she gives them multiple modalities to be able to access the ballet curriculum and to see what she does with the really little ones. I mean, she'll take 2-year-olds. Most dance studios don't do that. And that's because 2-year-olds often need the same structure and supports for behaviors as some kids do who have autism or Down syndrome or other usually mental disabilities. They just need that extra certain kind of support. And so she'll teach them how to do first position, but at first it's called pizza slice. And then as they get older, they start to learn the terms. It's amazing. I'll watch Liam with Bonnie or Liam with Mr. Brett, and they just say all these moves and all in French, and Liam does them. And I laugh because I go, if you ask Liam what 2 times 3 is, he's gonna struggle to tell you. But you list off, some moves and dance moves, and they're all French, and he can do them, no problem.
Well, I love it. Your husband says ballet for all kids has helped Liam go from tripping over both left feet his first day to a lead in recitals and now even helping new elementary age students in their classes. Yeah. Could you have imagined, when did it hit you, the power of dance on Liam?
Honestly, about 4 months after he started ballet for all kids, we had reports that he was constantly falling out of his chair in his classes. And after
At the ballet school or at
in school, in regular
school,
school,
regular
in
school?
regular school, he'd fall out of his chair. And after a few months into the school year, he'd been in ballet for maybe 4 or 5 months now, and they said, Liam doesn't fall out of his chair anymore. And we went, that's Bonnie, that's ballet. It was so much for him, and he was excited to go every week. I remember going to ballet going, I don't want to go to dance today. And for him, that was the highlight of his day, was getting to go to dance. And because it was going to see his friends. at the same time. He was going to go see his friends going to dance. And I think that's still what motivates him to go to dance all the
And
time.
and he has, and I don't want to, Alan, I want people to hear it in the movie, but when he's talking with Jamie on the couch, he words it perfectly. Everything isn't, I mean, so again, that's
It's
why
a great scene
it is, yeah,
Jamie's not expecting it either.
yeah, yeah.
No.
And it's the perfect moment, and I just happen to be there. And to be able to capture that, let's let the audience
Yeah.
hear it from Liam.
And you know what, Dan? He said the same thing after completing his week with the Youth Leadership Forum.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, it's amazing what these certain groups can just do, and what Bonnie does for just everybody, not just the kids, which, we learn in the film. It's not just the kids that have disabilities. It's the kids that are neurotypical, that volunteer or just want to take dance. I mean, Bonnie lets us moms who used to dance and have no business dancing join in and dance.
But I mean, you're right. What she does with the interns and just I said it earlier to Dan. I mean, she has to be a different teacher with each student. And there's a lot of, my God, patience and love and devotion. That first day you took Liam to class, could you imagine, what I just read your husband said and what you said earlier, that he be doing what he is doing today?
No, I couldn't. And I'm so glad that it's different. It's amazing. He continues to volunteer. Now he does it, and he's earning special recognition for a group he's in at school that will now be a special recognition at his graduation for completing this program. He wants to go into being an advocate or a counselor for kids like him who struggle with social skills and communication. And I don't think he would have ever done that if it hadn't been for getting to start this program. It was the place that he got to figure out who he wants to be and who he is.
And the timing of you attending that fair and coming across Bonnie there. Arlene just wrote, my Megan has severe autism. She's 33, and throughout her life, music and dancing have been such a release of emotion and gives her confidence. We started her in Special Olympics dance and cheer at age 9.
Good job.
It's just not something I knew. Like I said to Dan, I love dance. I mean, dance is my way of, I don't care sometimes being the only one on a dance floor because I enjoy it. But to know that it can help in such a way to let, I love the story of, him not falling out of the chair.
Well, and another story, and it's she's in the movie a little bit, is Maddie, and you see the tape on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in part of Bonnie's curriculum is that everybody has their space and it's taped off with colored tape, and that's their safe space where that she expects them to go there so that it helps with the discipline of where everybody goes in class, but they also know that that's a safe space for them. And what Bonnie says in there is when Maddie would step out of that, because Maddie would run around the classroom, is Bonnie would pretend she couldn't see Maddie. Well, where'd Maddie go? Where'd Maddie? Well, Maddie's standing right next to her, but she's like, where's Maddie? When Maddie stepped in the tape of the box, she'd go, hi, Maddie, nice to see you. So Bonnie came up with that clever idea, and to respond to what Maddie did with what she came up with, to me, is brilliant. They then took that exact same philosophy and they put tape on Maddie's desk at her elementary school. So she had the safe space in the ballet studio, and the safe space with the same color tape at her studio.
Got to do what works.
And you think, oh my gosh, how tape on the floor at a dance studio transferred into a school because people worked together and communicated, and look what happened. Now Maddie feels safe. This is where I can be myself. This is where I can talk. This is when they'll listen to me. And I just thought that's just one of the small brilliant things that Bonnie had come up with in this program.
Bonnie's training with a degree in psychology, and then her experience working with different organizations for people with disabilities is just invaluable to her students. It's amazing. I mean, I went and got a master's degree in teaching autism spectrum disorders so I could figure out how to help my students better. But what Bonnie can apply is just so much more to me, because she can be different for every kid and every kid's need, but all in all, she's the ballet teacher. She treats them all the same. She just does what works best for each kid, and wears so many hats for each one of those kids. And, we would use, if Liam advocated for himself without crying at school, that would be Bonnie will give you an extra stamp at dance. So, we did those same kind of things too, just to help get him to change his behaviors and make things more positive. But it's just so nice when you have other people in your world outside of your house who can do the same things for your kids.
That's beautiful. Were you a teacher before this?
Yes, I start my 23rd year of teaching in August. I've been in middle school teacher since 2001. I have not stopped. I did not get to stop when I had my kids or going through their value.
Masters.
Yes, during COVID, I took a master's program for teaching autism spectrum disorders because I was struggling with my other son and getting him the supports he needed with my own school district at my own school. And I wanted to figure out how to better advocate for him. So I went ahead and like, okay, well, I'm going to get this other degree.
Bravo. I mean,
thank you.
There is no better advocate than mom and dad.
Yeah.
Seriously. Aaron also wrote The Power of the Arts. Did you have any clue the power this would have? I mean, I'm sure you liked movies or dance and all that yourself before, but watching it unfold in Liam's eyes and in his moves and...
So yes and no. I was very involved in musical theater and choir when I was in junior high and high school. My high school choir director is one of the two teachers that made me want to go into teaching. He always said I have 3 children, but I have 200 kids. And we were his kids. He was the one who always said, I don't understand why people think teenagers are bad. Look at these 200 kids I have, and I can travel with them out of state and perform and win top awards for singing, and they're good kids. So there was a lot that I learned from the 4 years with being with that instructor in choir, and how much I loved being on stage. Even though I'm a humongous introvert, I could at least get on stage and perform. But what it did for Liam, that I could never have imagined. I thought it would just give Liam a way to have an extracurricular activity, but it's done so much more for him in his confidence and who he is. I mean, the boy goes out in public, and those security cameras, when you walk into a store, he'll stand there and start doing ballet moves in front of...
I love that.
That never stops. I still do it.
Yeah. But at the same time, he tried choir in middle school. He's now going to be in the highest theater class for his senior year, and is really hoping to go into the Woods. We're going to be looking for a vocal coach for him because he's not the greatest singer, but he really wants to be in this musical so badly, and it's his senior year. And he performs, he takes dance PE, but it's part of the school's dance department. So even though he qualifies for adaptive PE, his behaviors are stronger than those kids in that class. But his athletic ability being regular PE isn't so good, and he would really struggle in regular PE. So we just love that the school we chose for him to go to had this dance program, and she's amazing, the teacher. In fact, she just cried watching everybody dance, and wants to reach out to Bonnie to see if she'll work with her to have some of the kids perform at one of their concerts at the high school. So that's something I've never would have thought would have come out for Liam from this experience. And I'm so glad it did, because my boy just has he has what he wants to do.
For you and Aaron, it must be just something it must make you both smile just watching him.
Yeah, we always said all we wanted for our kids were be able to be happy and to be productive members of society, however that looks for them. Those are our only expectations for our kids. And we don't think those are bad expectations. We just didn't want to put that pressure on them, because we don't know what the world's got for them. And what we've been able to find for our kids has just been heaven sent, that there's a future for our kids. I'm sad that my son's going into his senior year, and I laugh going, I don't know why he's not leaving home anytime soon. It's like he's still going to be here for a while, but I'm still not okay with him.
Bonnie is an angel. Bonnie is an angel. Dan, and for you, Jamie, have all of the kids seen the film?
Well, a lot of them did, because when we were done before COVID, and then when COVID hit, we were going to release the film, but everybody was, think back to there used to just be like Netflix and Hulu, and then everyone was creating a platform, the Peacock, everybody. And I thought I can't release this now. It'll get lost. And these stories are too important, because 27 platforms are popping up. And I know that my dad couldn't even remember how to log into Netflix. And I thought, I'm not going to release this movie until everything settles down, and that world of all these different platforms and accessibilities for film is figured out, and people have figured it out and have settled down. So I waited, and it started to, COVID was starting to, lift, I guess, for lack of a better word. And we applied for the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and they chose us. Well, Santa Barbara's about 2 hours away from us, so we were chosen as one of their feature movies. So it worked out, to me, it worked out brilliantly, because to be at that film festival, you can't be at any other film festival. So to me, everything fell into place, because then a lot of the families came up and got to see it there in a theater. So they got to sit there, and there was a standing ovation. So for them to see themselves up there, and I just remember Ailey going, "Mom, you have a big head."
That's terrific. Well,
so to me, that is still one of my most special moments, is that I got to sit there with them when they got to see it on a big screen. Yeah.
Well, I hope everyone watching this tonight will check it out. It is available on Freevee. Is that how you pronounce it? Freevee on Amazon Prime, in celebration of Disability Pride Month. Jamie, Dan, thank you so much. I mean, we've, just even tonight with people commenting, Aaron commenting, and Eric, who is a high functioning young man with autism, and Arlene and Diane and everybody who's watching. Thank you for participating. Thank you for sharing your story. I really do think it's beautiful. And I think everybody, will be inspired by it.
Yeah, I hope so. And again, thank you for having us. And just let your audience know that it's on it's free on Freevee if you're an Amazon Prime
Right.
subscriber.
Gotcha.
But if you're not, you can rent it on Amazon, and you can also rent it on iTunes and Apple TV. But Freevee, in celebration of Pride, Disability Pride Month, offered it for free.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see what Liam does next, Jamie.
Me either.
Thank you both so much for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for allowing us to. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having us.
You're so welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you to Dan Watt and Jamie Kay for joining me tonight to discuss Everybody Dance. Remember, Everybody Dance is currently available to screen free on Freevee on Amazon Prime, and you can rent it on iTunes and all other streaming platforms. Please join me this Thursday, July 27th, when Ryan's Hope actors Helen Gallagher and Malcolm Groom join me live. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below. Turn on the notification for reminders of all upcoming shows. And if you like to stream audio versions, just search The Locher Room on your favorite streaming platform. Again, I cannot believe that tonight is my 400th episode. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I will see you on Thursday, everybody. Have a great evening.